Thoughts on Machiavelli, pragmatism and cons. That's from Marwan Shamsia. Machiavelli, guys. You know Machiavelli? Machiavelli was like, hey, man, you got to do what it's better to be feared than to be loved. You got to do what you got to cut throats if you want to be on top. You got to strike fear into your enemies. You got to be ruthless, so to speak. It's pragmatism. What works? Bring it out here. What are my thoughts on Machiavelli? I think it works in short term. Long term, it backfires. Why? Because the generation underneath you, you're raising. You're teaching them to be cutthroat. Well, guess what? They're going to cut your throat. And then they're going to cut each other's throat. And then they're going to destroy each other. Guys, I know it's cliche, but it's true. United we stand, divided we fall. The more unified a people are, the more successful and the further they go. The second everybody's going their own way, the second a group starts getting selfish and start competing with one another, they start stabbing each other in the back, they start plotting against one another, they ain't gonna last. That's the truth. That is the big philosophers, the big knock on liberalism. You know, one famous philosopher, John Locke, he was a Christian thinker who came up with liberalism. Now, I'm not saying he's the first guy to come up with it, but he's the one who championed the idea. And he formulated it in a certain way that was very unique. He said, look, you guys know this already. You've never heard of John Locke, but you've heard about what he's taught. John Locke says, look, in liberalism, you could do what you want so long as you don't harm anybody else. Doesn't that sound beautiful? Sounds great to me. Think about it. Be happy. Do what you got to do, but just don't harm anybody. As long as you don't harm anybody, you're good. You want to paint your hair purple? Paint your hair purple. You want to chop off one of your body parts? Chop off one of your body parts. You want to, I don't know, eat a all meat diet? That's your business. As long as you're not harming anybody else, go for it. Okay, John Locke, it doesn't sound crazy. The problem with that, philosophers have criticized him, is that in liberalism, this is the big knock on liberalism, because it makes sense. Like, why would you not do what you want to do? Why wouldn't you? You're not harming anybody. Why say no to that? The problem with what John Locke was teaching was that, imagine a country adopts liberalism, and I live in one of the most liberal countries in the world. I can tell you, I know this firsthand. What happens is every generation starts becoming more and more different from one another. You grow up in a world where everybody's going their own way. Everybody, okay, this group is dyeing their hair purple. The other group has long hair. The other group has short hair. Everybody's different. Everybody thinks a different way. This guy believes one thing. The other guy, they're so different that they have very little in common. And then they start having in common with people on another side of a border. So then you have ideologies or major differences amongst the people living amongst each other. What happens is there's a lack of unity. Now, a competing civilization, they all rowing, their ducks are in a row. They're all rowing in one direction. They all think alike. They all believe in the same thing. It could be very difficult to compete with a civilization like that. So when we're talking about a world of competition, because here's the thing, people forget about history. History is one giant bloodbath. One nation dominating another, and when you get dominated, I'm sorry to tell you, it's a disaster. Children are I can't even tell you what they do. Like, I hate to say it. But how did they dispose of their enemies' children? Once the peoples were conquered, what was the general method throughout history of disposing of the children? It's sad to say. But let's just say it had to do with a wall. See this wall here? They used the wall. There's even a verse in the Jewish Bible that talks about that, literally. There's a reference to it. Guys, the world, I won't even say what it is. It's just too morbid. What happens to the women of a losing group? History has taught us that taking one L. Oops. I triggered. Okay. See that? Siri's listening to me. Siri got triggered. Taking a loss on the battlefield was so disastrous, so mind-bending. Civilizations quickly adopted methods to never let that happen again. A lot of what you see of our traditions, our non-liberal traditions, are that. How to stay so unified we never take a loss. Because a loss is too disastrous. It's too mind-bendingly painful. so much of our traditions are meant to protect us from that. Philosophers, we understand it because we go back and we wonder, why did they do this? Why were they successful? They did something. Why was this group successful? Why was this group not successful? And we compare and we think and we theorize and we understand. We come to understanding that, because they were so alike, because they were so united, they couldn't create a schism between them and couldn't divide them. They were too strong. They were too united. They climbed up so high, so fast because of their unity. All great leaders had a unifying force. They were a unifying force and they became great because of it. There was no great leader ever in history. In liberalism, are we getting, I'm talking Canada. Okay, in Canada, we're super liberal. Are we getting more and more diversified? Now, I love diversity. Don't get me wrong. I have a whole other side to the coin. I like diversity. I like in Canada, you walk around and it's all different cultures. I love it. Don't get me wrong, okay, guys? I'm not speaking against diversity. I think diversity is great. What I'm just saying, some philosophers have critiqued the lack of unity. And the lack of unity can lead to disaster. Now, I'm not saying there isn't a happy balance between the two. I'm totally saying there is. All I'm doing is I'm highlighting one opinion because you think liberalism, it sounds perfect. Do what you want to. You want to be Jewish, be Jewish. You want to be Muslim, be Muslim. You want to be atheist, be atheist. Everybody just don't hurt each other. Don't fight each other. Follow the law. I think that makes total sense. However, what happens when a foreign nationality rises and they're totally united and their ducks are in a row and they're rowing all in the same direction? Are they going to outcompete us? That's a question for our leaders to think, contemplate on. Because you know what? Here's the thing. We're living in the most peaceful time in history right now. Literally, it's the most peaceful time in history. I'm very grateful for that. However, is it going to last forever? I don't think it does. I think history's, and I hope it does. I hope I'm totally wrong on this. But catastrophes every 30, 40, 50 years happen. Dispute over resources, dispute over land. Things can get ugly quick and change. And all of a sudden, the most unified groups have a major advantage. And we're wondering, hey, am I ready to fight for that blue-haired guy who has nothing in common with me? Nothing. He hates jiu-jitsu. He actually thinks I'm a horrible person for whatever reason. And I don't like him. He doesn't like me. Are we going to unite together and back each other up? Or is he going to defect maybe and go on the other side? Maybe I'm going to change side. Maybe I'm going to disappear. Not that I ever would, of course. But what I'm saying is that's the threat. That's the great criticism. A lot of people, when they read Plato, they're like, Plato is crazy. Because Plato said a lot of crazy things in the Republic. Let me tell you a little bit about the Republic. Plato wanted to take your kids when your child is born. And I'm going to tell you what he said without giving you context. Then I'm going to give you some context, okay? Because I don't think he was crazy. I think he was just desperate. Don't forget, Alexander the Great hadn't happened yet. The Greeks were a punching bag for the Persians at this point. Okay, they were tough, but they were still getting their ass kicked. He said, look, when a Greek is born, we're going to take him. We're going to put him in the nursery, the state nursery. So he's going to be loyal to the state. He doesn't have a mother and father. He'll never know his mother and father. When he grows up, we're going to give him a noble life. We're going to tell him he was born from a type of metal. And if he's gold, if they see he's really smart, they'll make him a philosopher. If they see he's really strong and athletic, they'll make him a warrior. If he's a laborer, okay, they're going to make him a farmer or whatnot. Like, they're going to categorize him. They're going to build the most efficient state. He was the father of eugenics. Eugenics is basically you're breeding human beings. He said, look, every year we're going to have a raffle. You're going to be given your mates for the year via a raffle. And the raffle is going to be fixed. Everybody is going to think it's fair, but it's not going to be fair. Listen to how far Plato went. He's saying, look, this is all a noble lie. We're going to fix the raffle. So we're going to breed the best warriors. We're going to breed the best philosophers. We're going to breed the best looking, tallest, most handsomest, most intelligent, most useful. We're even going to breed the best farmers. They're going to breed the Greeks without the Greeks knowing. And we're going to do this for their own good, he's saying. And this is how the Greeks are going to rise to the top. Guys, I'm very anti-eugenics, okay? I don't think it's doable. I don't think you can pick who's the best. If you look at all the top super studs of the world, like geniuses, you look at their parents, nothing to write home about. We don't know how it works. We don't know. Okay, sometimes you'll see a guy who's great genetics and his parents have great genetics, yes. But also, sometimes you will see a guy with a freaky IQ and his parents were just two average people. They didn't have an IQ of over 100. You know, like, how did this happen? It's impossible to predict these things. However, he wanted to play fire. He wanted to play with fire. And I don't want to say it's totally unknowable. Okay, we breed thoroughbreds, we breed all sorts of animals, and yes, there is some tinkering you can do you can make a difference. All I'm just saying is I don't think it's ethical. Now, he wanted to do all this. Why? The Greeks had just lost the Peloponnesian Wars. The Greeks, not that they were facing extinction, but it wasn't out of the realm of possibility that they would be captured, enslaved, and made to live in a type of hell. He was like, look, how do we figure this out? How do we get out from under this Persian threat? And they did. A few generations later. They helped produce Alexander the Great.